ANC Grassroots Organizing Committee, and also the introductory speaker and moderator for this panel. The reason the ANC wanted to have this conference, we wanted to just explore new areas where we can grow, new areas of learning for our community, our activists, membership, and as you can see, we're very happy with the success with the number of attendees. It's been phenomenal, way better than we expected. So thank you very much for coming out and spending your Thanksgiving weekend with us. Just a couple of words about this specific workshop or panel. What is social media? It's something that we all participate in on a daily basis, whether you know it or not. Doing Google search could be considered a social media, right? Kind of, sort of. Facebook posts is an obvious social media. Message boards, commenting on newspaper articles, commenting on Osbotter's articles. I'm sure many of you have done that in the past. So it's something that we all participate in, and I was kind of keeping track of social media mentions up to this point. But it was really interesting during the film in the arts panel last night. Eric Nazarian said something that I'm paraphrasing here. He said that social media allows us to immortalize something with a cell phone camera. So somebody takes a video, puts it online, and it's like a permanent record. And I recall that when Dr. McAlpin was speaking earlier today, where he used the term collective amnesia. And I kind of thought that is social media the antithesis or the opposite of collective amnesia, or that feature of social media, that it can immortalize something, and the individual has that power in their hand. And it was just kind of something that I started thinking about. Alex Sardar earlier today said, young people with a phone are entire organizations by themselves. They begin and end movements. And he was again referring to their power to use social media to those ends. So that's just kind of an introduction of the topic. I'll make some very brief introductory remarks for our speakers. As you know, we're running way behind on our schedule. That's due to the phenomenal program that we've had and all the questions and our terrific speakers. But Maria Armenian is a veteran journalist. She has a radio show called The Insiders on Insights like not insiders, like light bulbs. Like light bulbs on KPFK. And she also has a book that she asked me to hold up. Okay, Tony will hold it up. Called Kill the Messenger, recently published. Tony Adam, I've known Tony for many years, and his biography was slightly out of date. That got published, so I'm going to read the correction, if you'll indulge me. Tony Adam is an internet entrepreneur and currently an entrepreneur in residence at Science and Technology Studio. That was supposed to go at the front. He's no longer at MySpace. Alan, I've also known for several years, and the one thing that I can say about Alan that's not included in the bio is he's probably the most persistent person that I've ever met, and that's led to many long discussions between he and I. And I think you'll agree with that, right? So without further ado, I'll invite Maria to get things started.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you, ANC, and thank you, everybody, for being here. And it shows that we really care about where we're going politically. So I thank you for that, your commitment to take the time on a holiday weekend and be here for something like this. Very important. God, that camera's distracting. I'm going to talk about, first of all, what I study. I study political transformations. And I specifically study media's role in political transformations. And there are two things. One is that social media is changing the landscape a bit, but it's not changing the fundamental principles that apply to political transformation. The fundamental elements are really unchanged. The basic question is, what does fuel or cause a political transformation, for good or for bad? For bad and awful, like a genocide, like a war. For good, from war to peace. From apartheid to multiracial democracy. From violations of human rights towards a minority group to a democracy that incorporates them. What fuels these kinds of political transformations? It really boils down to one thing, and that is information. Information is the DNA for social systems. It tells us how to organize within a body politic, within a social structure. It's just like the DNA in our physical bodies. But information by itself is meaningless because there's vast amounts of data, and it doesn't make sense when you look at it vastly. There's just so much you can't process it all. So what gives it meaning, what gives information meaning, is the way that information is organized, or as we say in academia, how it's framed. Framing is a little like a picture frame. So there's this gigantic room, but it's just like too much to look at, or maybe a gigantic planet. But if you take a frame, you can see one aspect of the room, or of the society, or of the planet. But that means you have to leave a lot of material out. So it's naturally biased, a frame. When you're dealing with an information frame, it has a very, very powerful impact. There's an example I like to use. I think it's one of the ones that resonates the most with people, and that is scholars took an experiment that had to do with the KKK and a rally that the KKK wanted to have. And they used two frames, the same information but framed differently. The first frame, they took the rally, the KKK, all the information, and they put it into a frame of, this is a matter of free speech. The second frame, they took the exact same information, but they framed it as a matter of public safety. And in the first frame, people supported the KKK's right to march. And in the second frame, people not so much. Same information, same organization, same rally, two different frames. That's a kind of a subtle look at framing effects. But you can get much, much more dramatic. And in this room, as Armenians, we have been subjected, historically, to what I identified in my book as a genocidal frame. And there are specific elements within a genocidal frame that can get, as in the case of Rwanda, brothers to kill brothers, husbands to kill wives, doctors to kill patients, teachers to kill students. How do you get people to kill a neighbor that they might have slept with the night before, or had a beer with the night before, or dinner with, or went to church with? Well, I've identified 5 parts of a genocidal frame, and I don't have to go through all of them here because I know we're short on time. But a genocidal frame you can identify first and foremost by the element of blame. There's a political problem, and you cast all the blame onto the group that you want to annihilate. And as we know, political problems are multifaceted. They are created by multiple forces, not one group. Cast all that blame onto that group, make them seem less than human, make them seem by their very existence they are destroying something you care about. Mostly, that something is your country. So I'll move to Rwanda or the Holocaust because it might be a little bit less personal. But the Tutsis were cast as just by their very existence soiling the place, and they didn't belong there. They were invaders. And then the final element is, if you don't get rid of them, something awful is going to happen. If you do get rid of them, you get to be part of creating something in the frame that would be considered great. Like in Rwanda, they said, we are for a majoritarian democracy. Democracy sounds great, doesn't it? But the argument was, well, the Tutsis are a minority and they shouldn't be in power, and the Hutus are in power, therefore what we say goes. Well, in the case of the Holocaust, annihilating the German Jews, or the Jews throughout Europe, was really to build a utopia. Well, utopia sounds good, doesn't it? Well, you know, these people are soiling this potential utopia. And then the final piece, which is this element of, if you don't do it, something awful will happen. Most of the time, it's if you don't kill them, they're going to kill you. And they said that about the Armenians, and they said that about the Tutsi, and they said that about the Bosniaks, they said it about the Croatians, and they said it about the Jews. International Jewish conspiracy. So what happens when you hear this frame over and over and over again is that people's emotions start coming in. And emotions are extraordinarily powerful things. When somebody experiences fear, there's an automatic response. Automatic, boom. Distance or fight. When people experience resentment, there's an automatic anger, and there's an automatic response of wanting to change it. And hatred is the most powerful. It is a destructive force. It is the desire to harm the other. And these frames generate these emotions that have automatic behaviors. And when masses of people start to believe something, and they have these emotions, they start to act on it, and guess what? The landscape just shifts. But that's the bad news. The good news is that there are frames that can change things for the positive. And I've documented a few of them. South Africa is one. Northern Ireland is another. Burundi. Anybody know where Burundi is here? Burundi, people call the twin of Rwanda. So while Rwanda went down the genocide path, Burundi went to the peace path. Almost the same conflict. Used to be the same country, same people, same ethnic groups, same religion, same background. Rwanda, 100 days, 800,000 Tutsis dead. Burundi, still, it was very murderous. It was a civil war. It was awful. But because of the changes in the frames in the media, and because they didn't have a hate media, they were able to get people to stop killing each other. Still not perfect, and no political system is, and especially when you have a history like that, it's really very, very difficult to keep the positive going. I think negative is always easier than positive anyway. So how do we bring about positive transformation? I think there are several elements of that too. One is when there's a truth that's not being told, or a status quo that's being accepted. In Turkey now, there's a status quo that is accepted about the Armenians, and that is the Armenians were perpetrating, they were part of the civil war, and they were killing Turks, right? That's their status quo. So the first element is a truth and a challenge to the status quo. But that on its own does not work. The second piece is usually a humanization. Who is the face that is attached to this? Who is being affected by the status quo? Who is being harmed by it? And so we saw over and over in South Africa, we saw in Northern Ireland, we saw in every one of these political transformations that people had to experience. These were real people that were affected by this. Sometimes it takes a protagonist. So in South Africa, Nelson Mandela was the person everybody organized around. And people tended to forget one of his roles because of the second role. Here he was languishing in prison for over 2 decades and doing some pretty profound things. People forgot he was also leading the sabotage campaign, blowing up buildings in South Africa and that sort of thing. The American government didn't forget. And in Northern Ireland, similarly, Bobby Sands. He was a convicted terrorist. He was languishing in prison. And they ran him for parliament, and guess what? While he was on hunger strike, while he was in prison, he won. These are the kinds of faces that become part of the humanization process so that people understand. What happens when you humanize is that you start to see, and I hate to use this phrase, the other side, it's not really the other side, start to also see what's at stake. And then the final piece of a transformation, a political transformation from positive, is replacing the status quo with a vision of something positive that people can rally around. So in South Africa, Albie Sachs, who was blown up by a car bomb by the South African government, lost his arm, had his eyesight. He had been a human rights lawyer. He'd been in prison, solitary confinement. When he came to and he realized he wasn't dead, he said, we need to not just rail against the negatives of apartheid South Africa. We need something that we can all be for. And so he started writing the South African Constitution. And he got appointed to the Constitutional Committee by Nelson Mandela, and he then sat on the Supreme Court. And so be it, they managed to transform it. They're telling me my time is running out, so I'm going to move really quickly to social media and what is different now with social media. Boy, there's so much I want to say about media and all the different effects that do occur, and how truly powerful it is, particularly with cultural and emotional effects, and the social laws that are generated. People don't violate social laws, by the way. Rarely do you see people violate social laws, even in the face of state laws. Like we might go speeding, you know, like a state law. But I guarantee that you won't see a single man in this room wearing a pink skirt, ever. That is a social law that cannot be violated. That's how powerful social laws are. Okay, here's what has changed with social media. Historically, see, the principle is the same, the narratives are the same, the framing is the same. But historically, change makers, political entrepreneurs, had to do two things. One was they had to get the attention of traditional media and get through the gatekeepers to get their stories out, or they had to generate what the Irish called the mosquito press, which were little ways of getting to people, little flyers and little publications, tiny presses. That's starting to shift, but it hasn't completely shifted, and I don't think it ever will. There's always going to be a power differential between those with massive amounts of money and those who are like mosquitoes biting at the heels. But what's happening is it's morphing into something. So a lot of people noticed, for example, in the Arab uprising, the social media element, but they forgot that there were years of Al Jazeera in there that were changing the conversation, so that when as people's ideas, these ideas started to shift, and then they got onto the social media. And by the way, Tunisians had tried once before to have a revolution through social media, and they failed the first time, but they needed the help of the Facebook executives to help them circumvent the government. So there are all these different things that come into play. The other things that are really, really important now with social media, one is it's opening borders. So now Armenians can talk to the Turkish people. And they don't have to deal with the Turkish government so much. And I would say that they are potential allies in changing the conversation in Turkey. Collaborations are occurring more and more as people start to talk across borders and work together across borders. The entire conversation can start to shift because of the humanization. We all start to realize that people are generally all the same at heart. The other thing that is occurring now is that things are changing faster. So while the news cycle used to be a 24-hour news cycle in terms of like the next morning you get your news, instantaneous now. Occupy, you've seen the Occupy movement rise up. A day later, it's all over Europe. You see 10,000 people marching in Spain in solidarity with the Occupy movement. It's instantaneous now. Things are moving faster. Communication is going. And finally, it's allowing entry points for everybody to bring new truths. You've got the Green Movement in Iran being able to upload the videos of what they're facing, or the Burmese who were in their democracy struggle upload videos of the beatings they were getting. At the same time, though, it's allowing the other messages to get in. So we have the Norway shooter, for example. He wasn't getting those messages from the Norway media. He got these messages that had him want to kill all these liberals from the internet, American groups, because he believed that his country was being soiled by immigrants. So in conclusion, I think my time's up. I want to emphasize that political transformation is now open. And we all have a role in political transformation. So we all do have a cell phone. We all do have the computers. We all do have means of communicating. It's being constructed as we speak. Politics is changing. It's ever-flowing. The direction it goes is up to all of us. And it's a matter of the information and the way that information is framed in a compelling way, in a human way, that is a vision that people can get behind. Thank you.
One point that Maria just made about the Turkish people being potential allies, and one of our speakers last night, Serge Tankem, kind of hit on that point inadvertently. He was telling a story about how the Turkish government had planted some incorrect stories about System of a Down, and how Turkish fans of the band took to message boards, whatever means that they had available to them, to correct the propaganda. So that's kind of exactly what you're talking about, and this sounded like something that happened a few years ago, and I think it's something that would be much more prevalent today and moving forward. So next up is Tony Adam, and you're gonna come up here, right? You have a mic?
So this is a quote, and it's, if 3 decades of violent repression and despotic rule were the kindling of the Egyptian revolution, social media was both the spark and the accelerant for that movement. That's from Sam Dustin of Wired Magazine. That's pretty powerful. And that tells you that social media is causing change. Furthermore, why social media for these movements? Another great quote that I've been reading, and it's, Twitter and YouTube serve as amplification for what's happening on the ground, and they directly affect media coverage, Western media coverage, media coverage in general. And I'm going to make some points on that in a bit, but just think about that for a second. People that are online just tweeting, it's something you can do on a daily basis. You can change what's going on in governments across the world. And it creates public awareness. People that didn't actually know about things going on the ground now know about it. People can circulate that information through retweeting, through posting on Facebook, through sharing stuff, commenting on blogs, commenting in forums. I mean, forums is like the unsexy social media, but it still is extremely, extremely important. And then getting involved, like I said, just commenting on these forums, getting involved and doing this stuff on a daily basis. So a couple tools to use for social media. These are some good tools from a fundraising standpoint. You can use CrowdRise. Actually, that's the one I like the best of these four, to actually help raise funds for Causecast is actually a nonprofit cause marketing platform, so they provide a bunch of tools for social media marketing, social media activism, and fundraising and whatnot. Citizen Speak is actually an email marketing platform for social media and cause marketing. And then the last one, I actually found this recently, and it's called Crowd Voice. How many of you guys have heard of this? Anybody? No, great. I'm teaching something new. This is awesome. So tracking the voice of protest. If you go on there right now, you can actually see what's happening with Occupy, what's happening with other things going on, and they aggregate all the data from Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all that, and they put it in one big place so you can track the movement in real time across all these major social networks. So as I mentioned real quickly, I do search marketing, I do social media marketing, but I'm mostly focused on online marketing overall. And a really big part of that is creating content that people will share. And the reason for that is because you want to get mainstream media coverage. You want to get covered by NPR. You want to get covered by Consumer Report. You want to get covered by CNN, right? You could do that with a variety of things. One thing that I love doing, and I talk about this all the time, and it's kind of annoying to everyone in my industry, but infographics are great. They're a great way to take information and really dumb it down for people into real cool, fun graphics that people can use. So, you know, I used to do them for like cell phone plan stuff and commerce that I was doing, and we would get into, you know, Consumer Report, we would get into Wired magazine, we would get into all that because we were able to take things like infographics and put them in social media sites like StumbleUpon, Dig. We would share them on Twitter, we would post them on our Facebook pages, and reporters would actually be actively looking for this content. They want stuff to write about. So similarly within cause marketing and activism, they're always looking for something to write about. So creating content that they can see and find through social media is really important. This is a graphic by the Bill Gates Foundation. How many of you guys have heard of the Bill Gates Foundation? Okay, good. How many people hate when panelists ask questions of the audience? Cue the laughter. No, I'm just kidding. So Gates Foundation, they did this thing, and they're actually really trying to cure malaria. They've actually found a cure for malaria, and they talk about it all the time. They've done a lot of coverage for this, and that coverage helps get more support. According to their site, from what I think I read, it was 5 to 15 years they will rid the world of malaria. That's huge. Another thing that's really important, you know, you guys see, I'm sure you've seen like Farmville, Cityville, Castleville, I don't know what elseville that Zynga has created online. It's really cool if we can create games like this, and this is called Spent. It's a game that people play about the really bad job market and unemployment. And so they created this game, and you actually can be a restaurant server, a warehouse worker, or a temp. I actually took the temp challenge, and I couldn't even pass it. That just shows how bad, like, how bad these tests are out there. So this game actually allows you to try these things out, and similar to how like Castleville and all these other BS things are out there, you can actually post, I can't pay my bills this month, need to borrow $175. It's built into the game, so it really raises awareness around these topics. And then lastly, in the game at the end, it's really important to have these share buttons, just in case the red arrows aren't obvious, but having the share buttons just so people can share it easily. People aren't going to grab a URL. You guys probably don't grab, you know, the little address bar URL, post it into Twitter all the time. If it's right there in your face, you're going to do it instantly. And then also right there, give $5, trying to get people to donate right away. Really important. And just to kind of echo that point, this is actually off of the site. It's Triple Pundit. They show that of the top 50 nonprofits, 92% of them have at least one social media button on their homepage or on their site. So really important to get these buttons on there so people will constantly share that content. So I'm going to go through quickly because I know we're running out of time and I just want to rush through this so you guys get it all. YouTube for nonprofits. They actually, for nonprofits, I didn't know this until recently as well, they allow the donate button. Nobody else can do that. You have to be a nonprofit to do that. And you also get it on the on your profile page, and you can click Google Checkout right there, donate the money, get more funds for your charity. But YouTube can also get visibility. And it's really important because getting things like the Tehran election, or even Occupy recently, how many people haven't seen this video? So 1.4 million when I checked this out about 2 days ago. It's actually at like 2.2 million views right now. And furthermore, it got mainstream media coverage, and that's what I was talking about before. Things on social media that can now get mainstream media coverage. And social media coverage is great. It might hit 2 million views. A really, really viral thing might get 2 million visits or views on YouTube. But it's when you get in that mainstream media coverage that's on CNN, that's on NPR, that's when you can get really powerful messages across. Twitter. So right now, actually, you should all be tweeting. I'm having a killer time at the ANC Grassroots Conference. Follow at ANCA_WR. So you can use Twitter to find people that will actually support your cause. You can find fellow Armenians that are willing to support causes, or that you might be able to encourage to support causes. This is a quick Wikipedia article talking about a list of Armenian Americans that are very popular. You can also use a directory called We Follow, and there's Kim Kardashian on that list. She's very popular. And here's just a few people that I follow on a regular basis. Alexis Ohanian. Not many people, he's not a very famous Armenian, but he's a very famous technology entrepreneur. He's created a couple of social media sites himself, one being Reddit, which is probably the largest social bookmarking site on the web. Kim Kardashian, no. Sarah Stonkin, who spoke yesterday night. So you can use Twitter to learn what is going on in social media. And so here's searches for Armenian genocide recognition and Armenian relief. And based on that, you can actually find other people that are willing to join fights with you, willing to get involved. Previous speaker today talked about how Assyrians are actually really bringing to light the genocide, and it's important for us to monitor these things so we can actually know. There you go. Nice job. I'm going to give you a high five for that. There you go. All right. Support our public figure. Serge tweeted this the other day. Retweet him. You can see he got hundreds of retweets on that, and it's really important to support our public figures so that they can get more publicity for us, because they already have a large following and audience. Also, hashtags are very important. Including a hashtag is important because it allows Twitter to create topics around different things, and also it gets into trends. So if on April 24th we all gather together and we all say, support the Armenian genocide recognition, we all use the same hashtags, it could get into the trending topics, it could raise awareness for our cause, and it could get more people eyeballs on these things. Support blogs with social media as well. If there are people, Kim Kardashian publicized the Armenian genocide. I had no idea she actually would even do something like that. But I saw that article and I was kind of shocked, so I shared it on Facebook and Twitter. You guys can do that too. Olivia Katranjian, I hope I didn't butcher that. On the anniversary of the Armenian genocide, give the gift of light. Support these people. She's a writer for the Huffington Post. She's a well-known author. Support people like that in the community. Support them by sharing content. Facebook, really quickly, the Causes app. I tried this the other day and I donated $10. You guys can easily do that. Just a quick thing. Here's how you join it. You can send invitations to your friends. You can donate right there. I chose the lesser one. Just to test it out. And then here's how it posts in your actual profile. So how other people have used social media to raise money. You guys know about the Haiti earthquake in 2010. About 300,000 people were died because of this, and around 1 million people were left homeless. So it was really important for somebody to step up, and Red Cross did. This is a famous Haitian. He actually tweeted about it. Red Cross stepped up, did the whole Text to Haiti campaign. Do you guys know about the campaign that they did? They used social media to really get the voice out there. Within a day, they raised $5 million. So really important. We do this with the telethon. We can do this all year long with social media efforts. Charity Water, I love this because the guy that runs this, he used to be a nightclub owner, and he used to party and booze and all this stuff. And there's a great interview about him if you search for Mixer G, Charity Water founder or whatever. But he talked about how his life was empty, and he created this cause that was really, really important because it's supporting the creation of clean water out there in all these nations: Nepal, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Tanzania. One thing I'm bummed about is that Charity Water doesn't actually have a campaign for Armenia. So another thing that I want you to do, go ahead and tweet at Charity Water. How come you don't have a cause for Armenia on your website? We want one. We will support one. We will raise more money today. Something of those of that nature. So dollars to projects. They show you across the site how to actually turn your money into actual projects. Jack Dorsey, the exec chairman, CEO of Twitter, actually donated his 33rd and 34th birthday to giving clean water in these nations. He raised $25,000 for this on his 33rd birthday. Because of efforts like this, Charity Water has raised $20 million, and they've actually gotten 2 million people clean water. And how many people don't want to see smiling faces like that? And it's funny because it's such a simple thing, water, clean water. We don't think about that, but using these types of methods to get clean water out to these nations is really important. So where do we go from here? I think really it's just as simple as supporting causes. I mentioned tweeting, Facebooking, posting stuff on YouTube. If you're at an event, if you're at the genocide marches on the 24th, take some video of it, post it on YouTube. If you're out there, take a picture, immortalize the moment like Maurice mentioned earlier from another speaker, but immortalize that moment by taking a picture and then posting it on Twitter. And getting your friends to share it. It's really, really simple. Donate to these efforts. And real quickly, Wolf Blitzer of CNN, just to show you how important it is, when someone asked him, what Middle Eastern state is next to fail, he actually said, ask Facebook. So it really proves that social media is extremely important. Thank you.
Just like to take a moment to welcome Armenian Consul General Bureau Juan Essen. He's in the room with us, so welcome. Test. And our last presenter today, before the Q&A, Alan Yakikian. Take it away.
Okay, so Tony spoke about the tools we have today to make some really great things happen, to connect, to engage, and to move our cause forward. I'm going to put it all into context and show you how we've done this before. And contrary to regular trends, we 150, 200 years ago, were a little ahead of the times, and we're doing this before the tools actually existed. So my presentation is called Social Media and Grassroots Engagements, Technology, New Media, and the Armenian Cause. So we all know we have a cause, but do we have a movement? Do we have the critical mass and the focused intent to move this cause forward? I would say no. I would say instead of a movement, we have organizations, and we've somewhat confused the two over the years. But what we need to move this cause forward, what we need to create this movement is access to a medium. We need access to technology, we need to master technology, and we need to use this technology to bring everything together, to bring the cause to the forefront and to connect and engage everyone to that cause and to each other. But the only way to do that is to look at our roots, to see where we came from and how we've done this before. So this is a picture from the late 1800s, early 1900s of young Armenians your age sitting after a meeting, taking a picture, discussing what they were going to do to move a cause forward, a cause that had been conceptualized about 40 years before them and something that had inspired them. So I'm going to talk about how the Armenians of the 18th and 19th centuries really embraced technology of their day and the media of their day to educate their generation and inspire that generation to create a revolution. The revolution is what is the reason why we are all alive today. regardless of whether or not the genocide was recognized, whether or not the Muslim majority of us survived it. So before there was Facebook, there was Zocdoc. So I'm going to talk about Zocdoc and the dawn of print and our people's awakening. The printing press. So the 13th, 14th centuries, following that we had what many historians consider the dark ages for the Armenians. Kilikia falls, Mongols invade, Ani's gone. We're dispersed. You have vast Armenian colonies all over the world, and then you have a impoverished and dominated Armenian homeland of peasants. So this is when you can say the diaspora kind of gets its roots, but it gets they're colonies. There isn't a homogeneous thread that's connecting them. Now, in the 17 and 1800s, you have some shifts going on in the world. You have the age of reason, the age of science, the age of enlightenment, rise of the printing press. Science is really taking hold, and it's creating new technologies that are shattering norms. It's creating new technologies that are bringing about the printing press, that put word on paper and spread it around the world. Armenians are on the cutting edge of all of this. Armenians are creating printing presses. Armenians are printing their ideas. But they're doing it in these colonies, dispersed. The Makhitarists in Vienna and Italy are establishing printing press, translating text into Armenian, creating dictionaries. The Madras group in India, which is basically a community created by merchants, are creating printing presses. The first Armenian printing press, I think, was in 1772. And they're again putting thoughts and ideas to paper, printing newspapers, books, pamphlets, all to educate and awaken these Armenians in these colonies, to teach them who they are and how they're all connected, and their shared history and their shared future. Over the years, over the decades, these new ideas eventually become viral and create national consciousness, but it's a long, arduous process to get to that. You have Armenians such as Shahamid Shahamirian, who his Madras group in India creates a revolutionary text way before its time that idealizes an Armenian country, free and independent, and puts onto paper a constitution. First time ever in print, an Armenian constitution for a free Armenian state is put onto paper. And that is spread all around the world to these colonies through Armenian merchants and traders. You have here three newspapers and publications that I'm going to talk about. Mashag and Husi Sapal are really important publications because in the pages of these newspapers that were published, again, by people your age in various corners of the Armenian proto-diaspora, you have concepts of socialism, freedom, democracy, homeland, shared identity, shared future, shared nation being expressed, being written about, and spread to generations of people. More importantly, in this paper, Mashak, you have a young Armenian writer named Rafi, who is traveling the Armenian homeland, village to village, writing about the plight of his fellow brothers and sisters, what they're going through, and printing it in this publication that's then circulating it around in the Armenian diaspora, in Bolis, in Moscow, in Russia. These articles, which eventually become Rafi's Kent, for example, are articulating our plight and a cause, and introducing people my age to the concept of the freedom fighter, the concept of the individual who will sacrifice for the greater cause, the individual who will spread the greater cause, and the individual who has the greater cause. So, important in this period of time is there's a conscious and focused effort to use technology and new media to educate, activate, and mobilize the dispersed Armenian population for a specific cause, and that's liberation. So a lot of this rings true today. except one element, and I'm going to get back to that later, and that's the conscious and focused effort to use the technology, because we all have the technology today. So I'm going to talk about the rise of the Fedai movement and how a politicized generation seeks freedom and independence because of new media. New media inspires young Armenians to say, oh shit, there are Armenians getting killed 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away. I need to do something. I need to get up and either go there and take aid or go there and pick up a gun and fight and defend the village. And this completely changes the course of our future. Again, information and the revolution that information has created connects young Armenians across borders, not just to each other, not just to an Armenian from Vienna is able to communicate to an Armenian in Italy, but an Armenian in Vienna knows what's happening in Erzurum. Never before in the history of our people did an Armenian that far away know what is happening in their homeland at a particular time. I mean, you'd have to get on a mule, you'd have to go to some sort of post office or something, submit the letter, wait a year, and then you find out. You're in front of it. Okay, I'll stop. So it's in this period of time that the Armenian Zarqum that I spoke about, the movement that was created by Barafis, by the Shahamirians, the movement that was born out of the Makhitarists and the Madras group, really goes viral because there is not just one or two or three newspapers. There's 50, there's 100, they're all over the place. We don't have that today, but we have the tools to create that. So it's very key to note that this movement went viral. It exploded because they used technology. And it empowered an entire generation to change the course of our history and then eventually declare independence. So Zarqum enabled independence. Technology enabled Zarqum. That's very key. But then something bad happened. Genocide. And everything went back and dispersed. So a coordinated effort by young, educated Armenians who had been studying science, literature, arts in universities in Moscow, Armenian universities in Moscow and in Germany and in Tiflis, all of that hit a wall at 150 miles an hour and just boom, exploded. It was a very traumatic halt and a very drastic halt. And I don't believe we have recovered from that yet, as a lot of the panels have shown. But the important thing to note is this traumatic experience in the history of our people put to a stop a very revolutionary, ahead of its time movement that was behind the cause before that cause could reach its logical fruition and before the dreamers could realize their dream. But then again, something extraordinary happened. The new information age came. We were all being born at that time. Interestingly enough, when this new information age hits and when this computer is being sold, connecting people in a completely new way, Armenia declares independence again. And when Armenia declares independence, it doesn't take a year for us to read about it in the newspapers like it did 100 years ago. It doesn't take 6 months for us to know that there is a Qarabakh war. It doesn't take 6 months for us to know that Shushi has been liberated. We knew the next day. Not only did we know the next day, we sent aid the next day. We sent people the next day. And we watched it on TV as it happened. So as soldiers were climbing up the gorge in Shushi to liberate, people were tuning into Horizon the next day watching them celebrate in the streets probably. So that is something that should not be taken for granted. Because this is Zarqum on crack. And it didn't just do this for us again, it revolutionized communication for the world. So again, we stand at this very key moment in our history where technology is connecting our dispersed and fragmented nation. And we are now actually a hyper-connected nation. Before we were a super-connected nation, more connected than ever before. Now we're extremely connected. Now, you know anywhere and any time what is going on in the Armenian world. You know that she just got clothes donated to her in Java as it's happening through a post on Facebook. You know she's going to the AYF Youth Corps camp and what she's going through as it's happening on Twitter. And you know he's protesting against genocide denial on Wilshire as it's happening through YouTube. All of it simultaneous. We're all connected now. Again. So you can bridge hundreds of far-flung communities today. You can connect with Armenians across borders today. You can play a profound role in developing our homeland today. And today, you can start putting our nation together again, like our ancestors tried to do. Because of technology, because of our tools, because of the things that Tony spoke about earlier. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, the internet, text message, Skype, your phone, which one we're controlling the slides off of. Other Google blogs like WordPress, pictures, newsletters. Then I have 3 on the bottom, which are near and dear to my heart, AYF, Ospares, and ANC. ANC is a powerhouse on Facebook with 20,000 plus likes and fans and followers. Ospares is the only real newspaper in the world that matters. It has hundreds of thousands of viewers a month. It is what glues it all together, and it is what I hope everyone here shares with their friends. And the AYF, which is at the forefront of all of this, pushing the movement forward. So I use iPads and iPhones a lot to show that this is all mobile. We're all communicating and doing everything mobily, which is, again, not unique to us because back then, our ancestors were causing revolution mobily. Any one of them were in 5 different countries in any given month fomenting revolution for the Armenian cause. This is the Ospares iPhone app. Please download it. And this is ANC on Facebook. Please like it. Say hello to iZapto. So this is where we're at today. We are at the cutting edge of our nation's history. We are standing at the tipping point of a 21st century Zapto. But, there's a big but, we need conscious intent. We need to have a focused vision and the willingness to use these tools, not that we have Facebook, we should just post and get it over with and move on. It should be something that we religiously incorporate in our organization's modus operandi. Social media is media today. It is how you communicate with each other. It is how you get your stories to places like NPR. The traditional communications offices, the press releases, those are dead. Those don't work, especially in Armenian media. In Armenian media, a press release is worth very little. It's the story you write through your blog, the story you send to your Ospares, the story you tweet, you share on Facebook, the video you create and post on YouTube. And if I didn't show you guys the proof, then I don't know what else to show, but this is how technology revolutionized the Armenian cause.